in light of the end of the European footballing season, and given that we're now in the midst of the European transfer window, I've really been interested in seeing the discourse surrounding, transfers and how things have gone on. And what I'll go and address is a lot of the hypocrisy surrounding on it. As you guys may very well know, obviously I'm a PSG fan, and I find it really interesting to see just how there's a double standard with how transfers are treated, so on and so forth. Because I'll go and take, as a PSG fan, PSG won the quadruple. PSG obviously lost in the Club World Cup final, but a lot of the discourse when PSG won the quadruple was that, oh my goodness, after all this time, after all the money PSG spent, all this stuff, Oil FC, this, that, and the other, it's about time that they went on and won the Champions League. But then I go and you look at the fact that Liverpool, if I come here and I look at them on transfer mode over here, have just spent over 125 million on Florian Wirtz, 46 million on Milos Kerkez. You look at Arsenal, who've gone and spent 70 million on Martin Zubimendi, 55 million on Noni Madueke. On Noni Madueke, who, listen, I'm not here to go and discuss the transfer and whatnot. It's just seen even by Arsenal fans that, it's not a wanted transfer necessarily. But for Noni Madueke, who you could argue is going to be a sub, somebody to come off the bench for his preferred position on the right wing, because he's probably behind Saka in the hierarchy as a right winger. So Arsenal just bought a 55 million right winger to be basically an option off the bench, unless you're going to go and play him out of position. And you look at Manchester United, who've gone and spent nearly 75 million on Matheus Cunha, and who are currently, as I speak, in talks of getting the Bryan Mbeumo deal done for over 70 million. So spending nearly 140 million for two players. Yeah, when PSG went last season and spent 70 million on Kvara, who came into the squad, became a guaranteed starter and worked out, 60 million on João Neves, who was a guaranteed starter and helped tremendously over the course of the year, and 50 million on 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝘼𝑎𝑙𝘾, who helped tremendously over the year, as well as 40 million on William Pacho. PSG's ruining football. It's bad for the sport. The game is gone. And one of the big criticisms that comes around regards to PSG, and I'll go and put City in that as well, is this oil club, Oil FC, this and the other. And now I'm not going to go and speak on City. I'm not a City fan, so all the City fans out there, I'll let you guys defend your club. But from what I know, if you actually go and you look at the business model of clubs, most of the money that football clubs make is through either one, match revenue, TV broadcasting, or sponsorships. Those three. And it's the same thing with PSG, with City, with Arsenal, with Real Madrid, Barcelona, United, whatever club you want. It's all the same. So when I go and hear this thing of Oil FC, the fact that, okay, maybe the back end owners, so on and so forth, come from Saudi Arabia, and that Saudi Arabia or Qatar made their money, or the United Arab Emirates made their money primarily through oil, doesn't mean that necessarily like PSG's like getting directly their money from the oil springs of Qatar and the gas pipelines from Qatar and Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. PSG make their money through sponsorships with Qatar Airways, through match day revenue at the Parc des Princes, through selling suites, and as well as through their TV broadcastings with Ligue 1, the Champions League, the Club World Cup, etc., so on and so forth, like any other club. And this is another fact that I want to go and bring up is even on this whole thing of transfer money. First and foremost, clubs, when PSG clubs go and spend out money, that's what they do. That's what's been happening. Sure, you could argue that, today clubs are spending more money than ever, so on and so forth. And the common criticism against PSG is that, oh my goodness, you guys went and spent, 220 million on Neymar, 189 million on Mbappe. And when I, as a PSG fan, go and say, well, okay, you can say whatever you want about how much money they spent, but I'd argue that sporting wise, they were successes. And to all those people saying, oh no, how could they possibly be a success? You guys didn't win the Champions League. I'm sorry. If you're telling me that the one game, PSG Bayern in 2020, that one game basically decided whether or not they were worth it. If they'd gone and won that and won the treble and won the quadruple and won all that, all of a sudden those transfers are worth it. But because they didn't ultimately win you the Champions League, now they're a complete bust is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because you don't say the same thing about other clubs. But again, and I have to give a shout out to my fellow PSG supporter, PSG who made this graphic, but just go and show you the amount in transfer fees that each of the big clubs have spent since 2015. So PSG spent 1.5, Barcelona spent 1.3, Real Madrid spent nearly roughly $1 billion. Same with Bayern. City has spent $2 billion. Liverpool has spent 1.1, Arsenal has spent 1.5, and United has spent 1.8. So in all of this list, PSG is what? Third in terms of the most amount of money spent. And it's not like they're, third with a massive gap. They've spent what? 200 million more than Barcelona, 400 million more than Arsenal and Liverpool, and 500 million more than Bayern Munich. If you're going to look at, for example, the transfer since 2020, PSG is once again third in this case, but now it's really close. They're 1 million, 100 million behind Arsenal, Liverpool, Barcelona, 200 million behind Bayern, and 250 million behind Real Madrid. That's not all that big. That's not all that significant. Same thing if you go and you look at City. City, once again, lead the race with City, with either their fellow 𝙀𝙀𝘾𝘼𝙎𝙏𝘾𝘼𝙎 and United. But you go and you look, for the same amount of money spent, look what, City have been able to do. They won a treble, they won a four-peat in the Premier League, whereas United, they've arguably had one of their worst patches in relative recent history. So it's not that, it's not the spending of the money. It's how you spend that money. You look at Barcelona. Barcelona is one of the clubs that have grossed the highest revenue of any club in the world, right? Make ridiculous amounts in their sponsorships. Make ridiculous amounts in terms of ticket sales because of the size of their stadium. Less so recently because they're playing at the Montjuic, but the Montjuic is still, a 50,000-seater stadium. Yet despite all that, it's their poor mismanagement of funds that put them in their precarious situation. Real Madrid, same thing. They're going and being able to do so. They took a lot of debts to go and pay out their stadiums. But again, they're still spending money. But when PSG and City go and do it, it's bad for football. I don't get it. I think it's being extremely hypocritical. If you actually go, funnily enough, and you look at net spend, again, it's not like there's a crazy discrepancy. Real Madrid and Barcelona are actually relatively low. This has to do a lot of the fact that in La Liga, the structure of the league, they really want you it basically forces you to be really fiscally responsible. Bayern Munich have a net spend of 100 million, PSG 400 million, right in line with City, who are behind Manchester United, which is the highest net spend. Then it's Liverpool, who are 100 million behind PSG. But again, to go and show you that PSG, your cities, are all in the same ballpark as all of these other big clubs. But it's not talked about. And once again, if you go and you look, for example, this very same season, you look at the amount of money it costs for the squad assembly. You go and you look. Real Madrid cost them 652 million. A lot of that can be skewed due to the fact that, number one, Madrid, they didn't really sign many players, and all of the signings that they got were free transfers. And this doesn't count on any add-ons or, signing on bonuses. So people like Mbappe who signed, those don't count. But even despite that, this still counts transfers like 𝙀𝙊𝘾𝘼𝘞𝘼, who came for, roughly over 100 million. Jude Bellingham, who came for over 100 million. City, again, 1.1 billion. United was roughly the same amount, 1 billion. Arsenal, 810 million. And funnily enough, with 774 million, we'll say 800 million, PSG. Similarly, behind Arsenal, in a similar line as your Liverpool's, obviously behind Bayern Munich, and obviously Barcelona with their issues financially are very much the club that's spent the least. But again, it just goes to show you that your PCs or cities aren't massively overspending other clubs. And this is not even to get into the fact that PSG and City relatively don't have many debts compared to a lot of the other clubs. But yet the discourse is still, surrounding these clubs that, oh my goodness, they're ruining football, this, that, and the other. And even when you go and you look at, I've heard a lot of people go and say that all people only come to PSG or go to City, it's for the money, it's for the wages, so on and so forth. Neymar only came for the money. Is one of the reasons why Neymar came for the money, is one of the reasons why Neymar came to PSG is because of the money? 100%. You can't lie. At the end of the day, football is a sport. It's a sport, yes, but it's a career. They're professionals. They make money. This is how they make their living. And so, of course, the monetary aspect of it is going to play a part. But when you go and you look at it for this season, once again, in terms of the squads with the highest wage bill, this is all on FBref, and this is the data that they got from Capology. Real Madrid has the highest wage bill this very last season. Then it's Bayern Munich, then it's City, then it's United, then it's Chelsea, Arsenal, Barcelona, and in 8th place, it's PSG. 8th place, it's PSG. And I could even go and say that PSG, one of the reasons why they oftentimes gives really high wages is due to the facts of French taxes. In France, the government takes a large portion of your wage away for tax purposes, which is not included here. So they're going to show you that even with that, PSG are not even in the top 10 in terms of highest wage bills. They're behind Barca, they're behind Arsenal, they're behind City, United, Real Madrid, Bayern, all these other teams, all these other massive European clubs. We're told that, PSG bought their way to winning the Champions League. If that's the case, I want to hear the same thing with City, same thing with Chelsea, same thing with Real Madrid, same thing with Liverpool, same thing with all these other clubs that have gone and spent a lot of money to get to this point. And that's why I say it's hypocritical. It's extremely hypocritical. When you look at Barcelona, we're nearly ready to spend 60 million on Nico Williams, which was a similar transfer as 𝙎𝙊𝘿𝘾𝘼𝙎𝙏 last season. Yeah, we didn't hear anything. It would have been a great transfer move. Again, as I said previously, United getting ready to spend 70 million for Bryan Mbeumo. But it's good. No issues whatsoever. But when PSG go and spend 60 million on 𝙬𝙬, 70 million on 𝙬𝙬𝘾𝑼𝙎𝑎 over the winter transfer window, it's ruining football. It's not good for the game. It's not this. I don't know how else. If that's not a double standard, I genuinely do not know what is. If that is not a double standard, I genuinely do not know what else could be. And so all I'm asking for is that within the footballing community, let's be consistent. If a club going and spending over 150 million on a player is bad for the game, it's bad for every club, whether it's PSG, Chelsea, City, United, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barca, so on and so forth. Let's not cherry pick and say when one club does it, it's bad. When the other club does it, it's okay. Let's be consistent. And that's all. That's really basically the crux of the video for today. It's just something I find really, really interesting. Going and seeing Liverpool potentially again. Their transfer thing is not even over. They could potentially, what I'm seeing on the radars, are interested in potentially going and cracking 70 to 80 mil on either an 𝙀𝙊𝘾𝘼𝙎𝙏 or an 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝘼𝙎𝑐 or an 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝘼𝑚 from Newcastle. Again, when PSG went go on spend 60 million on Gonzalo Ramos and he comes off the bench, so on and so forth, it's, oh my goodness, look, what a transfer bust. But when Barcelona go and spend 42 million on Victor Roque, comes to the club and is back in Brazil within less than a year, we don't hear anything. As in, listen, it's part of the game. Clubs are going to go make mistakes. There's going to be players that come through the club that don't really work out, and you move on. There's no issue with that. But I feel like, and I specifically want to go and say, it's basically with City and PSG, and I don't think it's a coincidence that these are two clubs that are owned, air quotes, not even air quotes, their owners are from the Middle East. But when you have the billion-dollar venture capital firms from the US owning Arsenal, owning Chelsea, owning United, that are putting their clubs at times into financial ruin, we don't say anything. So yeah, all I'm asking here is for a bit of consistency. Be consistent. Do not change your tune. Do not have a double standard. Let your yay be yay. Let your nay be nay. That's all. That's it. But anyways, guys, I'd be curious to know what you guys think about this whole thing. Do you guys think that there's a hypocrisy in the discourse surrounding transfers, surrounding money in football towards certain clubs? Or do you just think that, no, it's perfectly fair, it's fair to criticize them, so on and so forth? And also let me know if you guys do like these more, general football newsy videos. If you guys want me to make more videos on, transfers, I remember I made a video on Nico Williams. If you guys want to know more about, PSG transfers, talking about Premier League transfers, obviously the 𝙎𝙬𝘾𝘼𝙎𝙏 going to Arsenal, the potential 𝙎𝙬𝘾𝘼𝑎𝑐 going to Liverpool, or even now I've heard that he's, given the green light to go to Al Hilal. Whatever it may be, let me know if you guys want to have more of these discussions, surrounding football news and transfers, etc., so on and so forth. But yeah, guys, that's basically it for me today, and I hope to see you guys soon. And remember, stay safe, stay kind, and stay blessed. Godspeed.